So we're hearing a perspective from the Israeli side. Let's now turn our attention to what the Palestinians feel about all of this. It's great to be joined now by Dr. Mustafa Barghouti, Secretary General and co-founder of the Palestinian National Initiative. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Barghouti. We will turn our attention to the broader aspects of this and also to the humanitarian disaster that seems to be unfolding increasingly in Gaza. But from your perspective and from the Palestinian perspective, first wanted to get your reaction to what was clearly an act of egregious terrorism by Hamas. What is your reaction to that?
I do not think that Palestinians are terrorists. The reality is that we are subjected to prolonged occupation since 56 years. And that occupation has transformed into a system of apartheid. And during the last 8 months, we've been encountered with terrible settlers' terror that has affected 248 Palestinians who were killed by settlers and army, and 40 of them were children. This is one of the reasons why we saw this conflict. I am against killing any Palestinian or any Israeli civilian, but the reality of today now on the ground is that Gaza is under terrible amount of bombardment. What is happening is nothing but an act of genocide. Israel is trying to enforce ethnic cleansing on 2.3 million people in Gaza.
Having a massive terror attack and killing 1,000 civilians and acts of brutality that have been displayed in Israel, that was wrong, and there should be a condemnation of that. That's an act of terrorism which should be condemned.
But that doesn't justify another act.
Nothing justifies. One bad action doesn't justify anything else.
But let me explain. That doesn't justify another act of much more massive terrorism. The attack by Hamas was done by a militant group. Israel now is conducting a war crime by a state, by airstrikes of Air Force, by tanks, by a government that claims to be a democracy in the Middle East. That is unacceptable. War crime should not be allowed. This must stop immediately. What we need immediately is a ceasefire.
Israel says its actions are to decimate and eradicate Hamas. That's what Israel is saying. Now, it's not as if the entirety of the Palestinian people have been supporters of Hamas. The Palestinian Authority and Hamas have been at loggerheads. Is there a way, in your view, that Hamas can be dealt with, that Hamas, the terrorists who struck inside Israel can be dealt with without a ground offensive or any other way of Israel going into Gaza?
Sir, 40 years ago, there was no Hamas. 50 years ago, there was no Hamas. And still, PLO at that time, Israel was describing them as terrorists. Up till now, the American Congress considers not only Hamas, but also the PLO, the peaceful PLO, the one that concluded a peace agreement with Israel. They consider them also terrorists. Look, Netanyahu is the most dangerous criminal man in this world. This man came to power in 1996 to kill the peace process, and he didn't hide it. He wrote a whole book about it called A Place Under the Sun. Netanyahu aggravated the Israeli public against Yitzhak Rabin, who signed peace agreement with Palestinians in 1993, which led to the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin at the hand of an Israeli extremist. Netanyahu since then blocked any possibility of peaceful negotiations. The question here is not about Hamas. Today Hamas disappears, tomorrow there will be another group. The question here is, what is the root cause of all of this horrible situation? They're not fighting Hamas. Only 2 leaders of Hamas have been killed so far. The vast majority of people killed are innocent Palestinian civilians at the hands of Israeli airstrikes, and now they want to deport them to Egypt, to Sinai, to the desert. How can anybody accept that? In addition to that, they are conducting today an act of genocide. Once they start bombarding with their artillery, which they did, it will create a total amount of indiscriminate attacks that will kill thousands of people. Look, people in Gaza tell me there is no safe place. Israel cut from them water, electricity, food supplies, milk for children, medications, Patients are dying because they don't have medicines. And that is all happening in front of the whole world, which keeps showing support to Israel.
So what Israel has been saying about people moving below the Wadi Gaza line, that they're not saying leave Gaza completely, they say move to the south of Gaza.
No, sir. Be accurate, please. The Israeli spokesperson of the army said that all Palestinians in Gaza should evacuate to Egypt. That's what he said. Now they are saying north to the south because it's a first stage, and then the south has to go to Egypt. This is what's happening. They talk about ethnic cleansing of 2.3 million people. Every Indian person should be against that. The Indian government must issue a statement against that. Otherwise, if you accept ethnic cleansing, we are living in a world of jungle, and nobody will ever respect international law.
All right, Dr. Barghouti, thank you so much for joining us for that very strong and clearly expounded view. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.